Tonight on Ham Nation, hams create ventilators, Winlink is in use, and Valerie presents a special award for CQDX Hall of Fame.
Ham Nation is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remote. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by ICOM. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode 454, May 20th, 2020. Valerie presents the special CQDX Hall of Fame Awards.
Hello, everybody. It's Bob Heil, K9EID, and we're here tonight on Ham Nation to talk about a lot of wonderful things, and we've got some experts to help us. First of all, let's see what's going on in Costa Mesa. Gordon West, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I am fine. The surf was up and temperatures in the 90s in the next couple of days. It's going to be good. But Bob, here's the great news. I had an E from Alden, and he says we've conducted 163 exams in the last 3 weeks, averaging 2 sessions per day, 6 days a week. These are remote exams, and the W5YI group, VEC, Larry says they've got 6 exam teams that have accomplished 66 remote exams, tested 360 applicants, 5 other teams getting worked up, and it's being given via examtools.org. Now, Exam Tools, that's Richard Bateman. You all know Richard, KD7 Bravo Bravo Charlie. Richard has done just a fabulous job of his hamstudy.org. Well, now he's got everything so that the students can effortlessly, remotely, and safely take the exam nearly anywhere, including in Europe. To learn more of an exam near you or to work up an exam team, go to admin, ADMIN, at W5YI.org. They'll take good care of you, and hopefully soon we'll be able to start doing exams one-on-one. Soon. Bob, back to you.
And that just means that more amateur radio operators for all of us. Well, we're going to have a really good report from Valerie a little later. Do not miss what Valerie's got in store for us. And Don's got, I think he's got a little bit of space news along with Newsline. George has got a great report. I mean, we're full up tonight. But we have, first of all, one thing I wanted to do. I received an email from a man, and I wanted everybody to listen to this closely because you might be able to help him. It's Tom, WB0QVB. He's in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I think I said that right. The thing is that he needs somebody to help him hang up one end of his antenna, and he is not able to do that. So if anybody's in that area, please contact Tom, WB0QVB. If you can't find it, why, come to me and I can help you with that. But that's some of the things we need to do in these times. We need to help each other and especially stay on the air. So I hope somebody can help Tom. Well, you know, we've been really just going crazy with this club spotlight, and we're so thrilled. We have 2 very important things tonight, and one of them is going to be a very important club, and the other one's going to be a very important club right here on Club Spotlight. And if you have a club and you want to be on the spotlight, come on, Ham Nation. All you have to do is send me an email. It's at the bottom of the screen. Worst case, my call at ARRL gets it. Can't forget that. And we'll put you in the queue. And I have a little thing in my thing. It's called the green room, just like Johnny Carson used to have right before you go on. So very, very good to get you in the green room and settled up. Well, first of all, before we go down to Texas, we're going to go down to Florida and talk to Gordon Gibby. Gordon, how are you doing? And it's nice to have you. Welcome.
I'm doing well.
I understand that you have some incredible news about some things that might help us all. So tell us a little bit about this project that you're on.
Okay, well, I'm a physician. I retired from anesthesiology in January, and a good friend of mine, Dr. Sim Lampatang, is a PhD who does research at the University of Florida, and he called me up and said he wanted help building a ventilator for COVID-19. And I thought, this is not going to go anywhere, and I'm just going to ignore him. But after I looked at what he had actually done, I concluded, Sim is going to build a ventilator, and I need to help. So I got busy with these guys, and then we acquired a bunch of helpers from Ham Radio. We went to the BitX crew and begged for help, and Jack Purdom created an entire groups.io site, and we had over 100 people, and we created not only the electronic control for Sim's ventilator, but we also assisted in testing and improved his design. And it went to the FDA last week, and it's in FDA review right now. We're starting to get a few questions back from the FDA, which is expected. And we hope to have a low-cost ventilator that can be built for about $400 anywhere in the world with parts from Home Depot, and will perform good enough to do anesthesia and surgery basically anywhere in the world.
That's
wow.
Amazing. And again, here we are, ham radio operators doing this. And we're so proud to be a part of all that, meaning that hams around the world can put our soldering iron and our heads together. So that's really great, great news, Gordon. I got a couple of things we'll run through. You can describe what we're seeing here. Go ahead, Gordon.
Well, we ran into some problems because this is not just a software system. We're dealing with a mechanical system with actual tubes and air and patients, and we couldn't understand some of the issues, so we had to reduce it to electrical engineering terms. We basically had inspiration tubing, which had a filter in it made out of it's like an oil can filter, but it acts like a low-pass filter. We had ringing in the line. We had an SWR on the line. We had feedback. And we had to figure out how to solve all this. Now, mechanical engineers would look at this very differently, but we're ham radio operators, so we made an electrical analog to what was happening in our ventilator tubing, and that helped us figure out what was going on. We basically had a Class D amplifier and a low-pass harmonic filter, and we were trying to optimize the system.
That's really something. That's the schematic, I guess, of the entire thing as it's finished, right?
That's Usher Farhan's schematic. Usher Farhan in India was part of ventilator developers at groups.io, and he created the schematic, and he also created our first board design. He actually did 2 or 3 board designs for us, which allowed us to get this thing up and going, and it's based on his BitX design, so it was very likely to succeed from the get-go. He's a genius.
Wow.
That's me trying to figure out how to make an LCD screen work. We had to fight through every little problem because most of us didn't know much about what we were doing, and bootloaders didn't make sense to us, and we had to figure out pins and understand I/O, and we just had to learn as we went, all of us. And we're all over the world, and none of us can get parts, and we have to order parts from Amazon. And this person has that part, and this person has the other part, and they don't work together. And it was just, a horrible impediment in a time of crisis.
Oh, my goodness.
That is one of our first prototypes actually built and working. It's in a Home Depot electrical box that basically meets the IEC standards that the FDA requires. There's a transducer board in the front there that I designed with a tiny little tiny little battery charger. You can see a huge fuse there, only fuse I could find in the house to meet an FDA requirement, bunch of switches. And then behind it, you can make out a glued-on board with a differential pressure transducer, and you can see some of the pressure tubing lines. It's a mess, but it worked.
That's the main thing, that it works. That's for sure.
We could not use ordinary parts. We had to use parts that could not normally be used in a ventilator because normal parts used in ventilators were in short supply. They were being requisitioned all over the world by big manufacturers. So we built this ventilator with parts that you don't normally use in a ventilator. And one of those was a BME 280. It's a Bosch part that measures pressure. And it measures it so accurately that if I walk upstairs to the second floor of my house, you can read the altitude from this part. It's a tiny little thing inside there. It's smaller than a grain of rice, and we couldn't connect to it. So in order to connect to it, we had to glue on vacuum hose connections from an auto parts store with 5-minute epoxy to the Adafruit breakout board. You have to do that very carefully because if you glue over the top of the chip, you're done. And then you attach a plastic tube to it, and that's how we made a pressure transducer. Nobody wants these things. There are millions of them in the supply line. They're not used in normal ventilators, so we could easily get our hands on them.
So you made your own. See, there you are, ham radio at the best.
This is the first expiratory valve that our group worked with. When you try to ventilate a patient, you have to blow air in the inspiratory line, and you have to block off the expiratory line, or the air all leaks out. You want it to go into their lungs, not into the room. So this valve was created by Dave Lisdis, one of the engineers at the University of Florida. And he basically has an elbow connector that samples a bit of the pressure in the inspiratory line, and that is part of a bicycle inner tube that gets passively blown up in the expiratory line, and that blocks off the expiratory line so the patient gets the air. And then when you stop pressing the pressure in on the inspiratory line, the bicycle valve automatically deflates, and then that allows you to exhale. We had a problem with these because at first they would tear up after about 10,000 cycles, and we needed 1 million cycles. Before we were done, people had found ways to improve it. You can see they put a bushing underneath that zip tie, and we had these things going over 300,000 cycles. And I think Bob Benedict is one of the people who did all that testing. I don't even know where he lives, but he's one of our ham radio volunteers doing incredible research grade testing for us just as a volunteer.
Oh, man, that's incredible. That's just so incredible. I can't believe some of this is going on, and you guys did it. There's the whole deal, I bet.
Okay, well, Mark L. Winsenreed came up with an even better idea. He said, instead of using the bicycle valve, why don't you use an orbit sprinkler valve as your expiratory valve in addition to the rainbow sprinkler valve that you're using for your inspiratory valve? These parts are available at Home Depot for $12, and no ventilator manufacturer is going to scarf them up. So they're available for everybody to use. So Mark switched the spring from the top to the bottom of the diaphragm inside that green valve right there. You just unscrew it, and it became an expiratory valve with an extraordinarily low series resistance. And it was a pretty good valve for us, and it's driven by, in this case, an industrial pneumatic controller valve with air pressure, not electricity. But when we first did this, we drove it with a canister solenoid from a Kia sedan that I managed to find at an auto parts store near. At the very bottom of that screen, you can see a couple of parts that were either 3D printed, the black overpressure valve, or cut out of PVC, the white anti-asphyxia valve. These are all required by FDA for protection of the patient. And at the upper right-hand side of your screen, you can see our Venturi. That's handmade, homemade Venturi. And that turned out to be extraordinarily accurate at measuring how much air went in and out of the patient. It's basically a series resistance, and we're basically measuring a voltage drop across it, otherwise known as pressure. And we integrate that over time, and we get the flow out of the patient. And it was accurate to within about 10%. It's accurate to within about a tablespoon of air. It was astonishingly good. And we designed it and built it ourselves.
My gracious, this is just such excitement to me. These are the kind of things that hams do. There is no schematic. We'll make our own.
This is a differential pressure transducer. It's one of the devices we tried early on. It has 2 barbs coming out of it, and they make these things in all kinds of different sensitivities. I got this from Amazon, and it's just to show you the kind of parts that we were dealing with. You can get these that will measure down to where a puff of air is enough to set them completely off. And we tried everything we could to measure these things, and that's just one of the components we worked with.
My, oh my.
This is a photograph of Usher Farhan's first board design. This is what I called his version 0.1. He whipped this up in just about a day or two for us, and it was designed to mount underneath the lid of our system, and it has its own connection for the display. And that's Usher Farhan at his best, just building parts for a ventilator half a world away.
Amazing, amazing, good-looking stuff.
Well, none of us knew if it would work. And we had to make quick decisions because we were being told that we were all going to die in 2 weeks. And then we had 2 weeks to make this work. So Dr. Gibson of the Obstetrics and Gynecology Department at the University of Florida hand-etched a board for us. And this is his hand-created board. I had no idea how hard that is to do and how thin the traces are. And we built this board. This is Usher's 0.1 design. And we proved that it worked. And then we were ready to go to China and Colorado to have boards manufactured for us. Every time we did anything, we ordered it from 2 suppliers simultaneously. So if one supplier failed, the project would not be put backwards. We spent over $2,000 to have boards made for us as quickly as we could possibly get them, because everybody said our hospital is going to be overrun in 2 weeks, and you've got to have this thing built in 2 weeks.
That's just an amazing story that we all need to share with everybody. Now, are you going to have these in full production, or where do you go from here, Gordon?
Well, we had to deal with a legal issue because this is a device where 4 out of 5 patients are going to die, and our goal is to try to reduce that to only 3 out of 5 are going to die on this machine. So there's a lot of legal risks. So we had to get lawyers involved, and we had to get permission and protection for all of our volunteers. So we succeeded at that. But key to that is the FDA emergency authorization for usage. We're in front of the FDA right now to see if that will get approved. We have the cheapest, most complicated ventilator that they have looked at. Jet Propulsion Lab, NASA, has a very expensive and complicated ventilator that got approved in 8 days. Ours, we think, is 2 orders of magnitude cheaper, can be built anywhere in the world, is almost as complicated and much more of a design leap for us to pull this off. So if it gets approved, we have 2 manufacturers here in the United States ready to jump on it and build them. The Army has looked at our design and is interested. FEMA is aware of our design. We have other manufacturers around the world who are interested in being able to build this should their nation need it. Because many of the engineers who have been working on this from groups that I'm not allowed to tell you all of their names, these are volunteers from big companies, and they come from foreign nations, and they have family back in those nations. So they're very worried about their own families and their own nations, and they found manufacturers around the world who can build this. And we need the legal cover from the FDA. Once we have that, then everybody goes.
Wow. Such work. And like you said, it's a team. It's a whole team of people. I think Victor has, you had sent me a magazine article or something. And did we get that up, Victor, that we could show that, at least where it is? Yeah, there we go.
That's a photo of Usher Farhan. Usher designed the micro-BitX radios, which are built with indigenous women sorting the crystals. And as far as I can tell, this man is not only a genius, but he's a philanthropist. I understand he now runs a company that is working to put satellites up in India, a contract satellite placement. The man previously built his own voice over IP telephony company. And he's the guy who did our schematic and who built our first circuit boards for us just out of the goodness of his heart. Calls me up in the middle of the night. We're 12 hours apart and works through issues with me right there on the phone. Just an incredibly nice guy.
That's great. For everybody watching, and we have a lot of listeners, I would imagine if you put his name into Google, you'll find a lot of things about him. And his name is Ashar, Ashhar, Farhan, Farhan. That's Ashar Farhan. I think I said that right. Put that into Google and take a look at what geniuses there are out there. And again, I love this hobby. This hobby has made my life, and I've been in it since I was 15, or approaching 65 years in this hobby. And every day I hear stories like this, and I'm so honored that you came onto the show. And I think we're going to have to check back with you in a little while and see how far you've taken this, because it sounds like there's going to be some lives saved just because of your team. And I thank you so much for being here, Gordon. It was my pleasure and honor to have you. Anything that you'd like to say as we step out?
I just think people need to explain to the world that the ham radio operators are a vast technical group of people who serve their nation in all kinds of ways that often go unrecognized. And if we explain that this is part of 97.1, a technical reservoir of people who not only know how to do this, but can do that and can put the two together and make it work, you don't find that often.
That's the whole deal. Give a ham a bunch of resistors and capacitors and a roll of solder, and we don't know what, but something will happen and it'll work. Well, I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I said I'm going to be bugging you again to see where you went and have you back on the show, because I am absolutely certain we're going to get some questions. And if you don't mind, we'll have you back and give us the rest of the story. Thanks for being here.
Very welcome.
So there, Mr. West,
Wow.
You and I talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time, how valuable a ham radio license is, and just being able to take part of all this. And as much as they do there, we have the other side of that, and that's the communications effort. And you have a guest, and you need to tell us about all of what they're doing down there, and especially Winlink. What a great thing this is. So, Gordo, it's all yours.
Well, thanks so much, Bob. And Dr. Gibby, wow, that was terrific. Well, our guest is John Hill, and before we bring him on, Winlink is such an important digital mode for not only high frequency for mariners out on boats all over the world, where I used Winlink regularly from here to Christmas Island, a tiny atoll south of Hawaii by thousands of miles, right on the equator, and every day we could stay in touch on the internet via Winlink. But you know, with all the emergencies going on here locally, Winlink plays a very important part in being able to get onto the internet, yet not have to necessarily tie into wire lines. So John, welcome aboard. And how about telling us about your version of Winlink on VHF and UHF? John?
Thank you, Gordon. Yes, I run a weekly net for Winlink. Anybody can check in. It's not limited to any certain group or any type of connection. You can connect with Telnet, with VHF, UHF, or HF frequencies. The whole goal is to practice. Not only practice the hardware, sending over radio, but also to practice the software, using Winlink Express. It uses templates, which are HTML forms. It's a little bit different from regular email. You don't see that in Outlook or any other type of email program. So if you don't use it a whole lot, you tend to forget. In fact, that's the whole reason why this net came about. A few years ago at Field Day, we had one person bring his Winlink set up, and we decided we'll use that to send the messages for the bonus points. Well, he did that. We got our bonus points, and nobody touched Winlink for another year until the next Field Day. Then he drug the same machine out, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, I remember that. How do you do it again? And so after a while, we decided, well, why don't we practice this? So we set up a weekly net. That way you can practice. You can connect to different nodes. You can connect with different sessions. We have telnet sessions. We even have one guy checking in on an Alden session. But VHF, UHF tend to be the most frequent. But we do have quite a few HF connections as well.
Terrific. Well, that's great. Well, let's take a look at some of the equipment and the slides that you provided. Go ahead, John and Victor. John?
Okay. This first slide, this is the radio, the setup I use. The radio is a Kenwood TM V71A. I didn't buy it specifically for Winlink. That was the first radio that I bought after I got my license, and I've upgraded it since then. So this is what I use inside my house. And the two items I have here, one is a TNC. The blue box is it's a Tiny Track 4 TNC. And the next one is a SignaLink USB, which is a sound card modem. You don't need both of those together to send with packet, just one or the other. And that's kind of what I'm showing here, is that the different options you can use. Some radios have a built-in TNC, and those are fantastic. They work great. But if you just happen to have a radio that doesn't have one built in, if you want to do packet over the air, you would need one of these two devices.
That sounds great. Now, what have we got there?
Okay, this is the back of the radio. And really what I wanted to show here is on this radio, you can see there's two ports there on the right side. There's a PC port and a data port. Now, the TNC or the SignaLink will plug into that data port. And the reason why I really like this is you can still use the radio for voice. So it will transmit packet on one of the stations, and then you can use voice on the other. If you don't have one of these data ports, typically you'll have to connect the TNC through the microphone jack as well as the speaker jack. And so you can't use the voice portion with the data portion at the same time. So I just wanted to highlight that with this. So this one is my station set up outside. You have my computer there with Winlink, and then there's the radio and power supply that's not on, but I have a battery there. The TNC is kind of tucked in the side between the radio and the battery. And if you notice in the background there's a red chair. It's a metallic metal chair, and I have a whip with a magnetic base stuck onto it. So I was able to connect to a couple of different nodes doing this outside of my back porch. It's kind of to simulate a Go kit.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, this is a map. I got this from the website qsomaps.org. I've seen this a lot with the Parks on the Air activations, and I thought, well, I can create an ADIF file and submit that. So what I did was I took everyone who's ever checked in. I have 200 unique check-ins. I've been running this net for just under a year, so I've had over 200 different people check in. And so this will just show kind of the reach. It started in the North Texas area, but as word got out, we have a few people from California, Washington, Canada. In the past couple of weeks, I had a guy check in from French Guiana there in South America, and I thought that was amazing. Wow! I was kind of confused. Like, how did you even hear about us? And so the word spread, and that's just to kind of illustrate the reach. It's not limited to one geographical area. Anybody who has a license, who has a Winlink account, can check into the net.
Wow, that is terrific.
Now, this is another map that's kind of zoomed in into North Texas, just to kind of get an area of, since the net started here, there's more participation here in North Texas. So this was just to kind of demonstrate for our section where the check-ins are coming from. And that the center there is on my location. This one is also, again, from qsomaps.org. I wanted to highlight the counties in Texas of where people were checking in. That way, the different emergency coordinators can kind of get an idea if their county, if their group members are checking into the net.
So, John, then emergency coordinators are well aware that ham radio operators do not need wire lines or cellular phone to pass messages letter perfect via Winlink, huh?
Correct. Our section manager spread this out to the whole section within the first 3 weeks of starting the net, and our participation numbers probably tripled after that. And so a lot of people are doing it every week very consistently. Over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've averaged around 80 people checking in per week.
And are they passing significant, important traffic, either regarding COVID or hospitals or anything like that?
So what I do is there's a Winlink check-in form, one of the templates, this one here. And what I do is each week I'll send out an email reminder and I'll tell them what to put in the comments. Sometimes it can be something as, what's your favorite oatmeal recipe? This last week or two ago, I asked, what did you do for Mother's Day? Or what did you do for Valentine's Day? So if there's a holiday coming up, I'll ask about plans for the holiday. If there's absolutely nothing going on, I'll try to find some obscure holiday, like that one was National Oatmeal Day. So I thought, well, what's your favorite oatmeal recipe? I try to keep it different each week. That way it doesn't get routine and boring. It's a little bit spicy, or not spicy, but a little bit different each week. That way you don't get bored with it. More people are willing to check in. This picture here is one of the examples of the reminder I send out. I tell them what the question is, then I give instructions because I'm always getting new people, so I always include the instructions. There's the website there at the bottom. I have a few people that check in that aren't using Winlink Express. They're using other programs such as PAT for Linux, and that's perfectly okay. So I put the format that you need to put the information there in your Winlink message as well.
Wow,
so really
that is that's amazing. And John, as you well know, it's so important for hams to, on almost a weekly basis, roll their nets, do the digital portion of the nets, because you never know that your digital portion is behaving properly until everybody comes back going, you got RF and we lost half your message. That tells us a lot, and I'd rather have that happen during peacetime than when we really need to send that message.
Yeah, it also helps the people who are operating nodes. I've had people ask me, hey, have you gotten the message? And I haven't, and so I tell them, contact the node operator. And there have been instances where the node operator didn't know that his node was down, and so they would reboot their node, and I would get 4 or 5 messages that were 2 or 3 weeks old. So it not only helps the operator, it also helps the node administrators as well. So that way, if it is an emergency, they can still get that message through the nodes.
Wow, that is terrific. So what's your best advice for folks wanting to get started with Winlink on VHF and UHF?
Start with what you have. If in the pictures I showed, I did not buy anything specifically for Winlink. The TNC, I purchased that to do APRS. The SignalLink, I purchased that previously to do digital modes such as DigiPal and PSK31. So everything I have there on that table, I did not buy any of that specifically for Winlink. So start with what you have and practice. Just as you practice a net or you practice contesting, any other aspect of ham radio that you practice with Winlink. One of the things I encourage people to do is if they check in with Telnet, I'll encourage them to get a radio or to get their system set up so that they can do it over RF. And I'll even, I tell them, try different nodes. If there's more than one node in your area, can you do one node versus the other? Is one more reliable? Are there digipeters in your area? Can you connect through a digipeter? If you can connect through VHF, UHF, can you connect through HF? So since you're doing it every week, you don't have to do it the same way every week. That way you get that practice. If you're called out for a deployment and you don't have the capability to do VHF, you need to do HF, maybe you can hit Christmas Island, but you don't know if you haven't tried it.
Oh, that's great, John. And John, I'm happy to report that the new extra class materials, the book just came out from W5YI. There are a couple of questions regarding Winlink as well. So we're 100% behind all of your great efforts. So final words of wisdom, John, for those wanting to, maybe dabble with wireless internet via Winlink.
Practice. It's real easy to check into the net. All you have to do is just send a Winlink message to me, KF5VO. I'll get you set up from there. So, today the net runs all day Wednesday. We call it Winlink Wednesday from midnight to midnight. It's running right now. Open up Winlink, send a mail to me, and I'll get you checked in, and I'll send you instructions on how to move forward from there. But practice.
Wow. Well, thanks so much. And boy, we sure need hams like you that can lead a whole new group of new hams to a new technology that they're just exploring on their own. Well, thank you so much, John. And very, very 73. Keep up the great work. And John, if you ever get a Winlink story of helping out with COVID and so on, let's say, oh, there it is. Thank you, Victor. What's your best email, or where should we go to learn more?
You can go to the Winlink Wednesday website, which is Victor was showing there. It looks like I need to set the permissions on the Google Sheets. What that really shows is just a pie graph. But there's some pages there that can help you out with your setup if you use the the Signal Link sound card. There's some tips in there on how to do that there in the tech tips. There's also a page that's an explanation of what TCP ports are and why you don't want to have a conflicting port. So there's some stuff you can learn from here, as well as the winlink.org website as well. There's a ton of information on the winlink.org website.
Terrific. All right. Well, stay safe down there in the Lone Star of Texas, and thanks for all you're doing to get more hams involved in different aspects of our great hobby. Thanks so much, John, and Very 73.
Thank you, Gordon, 73.
All right. That was great. We do a lot of Winlink on HF, Pactor 2 and 3, and it's always fun to see the VHF, UHF side. Well, Bob, I understand you and Valerie have something very special. What are you two up to?
Hey, guys. Well, as you know, with the COVID-19, not a lot of de-expeditions going on, and it's coming into summer, so really not a lot of contests. So I'm doing this new thing where we profile de-expeditioners to kind of talk about some of the fun stuff they've done and experiences they've had, and maybe some scary close calls and things like that. So tonight, I don't have one, I don't have two, but I have three heavy hitters on tonight in the world of de-expeditioning and de-exers. So the first one of this week's profile of de-expeditioners is Ned Stearns, Alpha Alpha 7 Alpha. He's an electrical engineer. He's been licensed since 1963. His principal interests are de-exing, VHF weak signal work, EME, and antenna design and homebrewing. He's the vice president of the Northern California DX Foundation. He's at the top of the honor roll for phone and mixed. He only needs North Korea on CW for the hat trick. He was part of the Voodoo contest group where they operated all over Africa. So he's got some really good places he's DX'd from. He's also, once again, the ARRL Southwestern Division Vice Director. And he's also been on some very large, high-profile de-expeditions, which we'll talk about in a bit, which I'm kind of showing you here. So without further ado, let's welcome Ned. Thanks, Ned, for being on. I appreciate you coming in, and I know you have a lot of experience, but we're also going to bring in another one. So I'm going to do two at once, and then we'll bring our third guy in at the end for Skype capabilities. I can't get you all in at once, but let's. I'm going to bring in my next gentleman, and that would be another de-expeditioner and big-time QSL manager, Bob N200. He's been on too many de-expeditions to count, including Amsterdam. He was on that with my husband, FT5ZM. He was also on Spratly Island, where they were shot at. Remember, this was back in like the 70s, and Spratly wasn't very safe back then. So, and Bob is also one of the a QSL manager, and here's his page. I just want to show you this. Let me go down here. Here's all the call signs he manages. It just keeps going and going and going and going. I mean, I'm not sure how Bob could find the time to join us tonight, but I'm so glad you did, Bob. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on tonight. Are you there?
Yeah.
I know I have a bunch of questions for you guys, and everybody's going to love this stuff, but I know you have a big announcement to make, Bob, so I'll let you go first. But I know ever since you said you were going to announce something big, I've kind of been trying to figure out what it is. And is it wishful thinking that you're going to be announcing a P5 North Korea activation or something like that?
Yeah, sure. I'll do that anytime.
So what do you got?
Well, as some of you know, we didn't have Dayton this year. And at Dayton, we make a big announcement every year at the DX dinner. And tonight, we're going to use Ham Nation as our mode of, pointing in the right direction here, as our mode of making these two announcements tonight. Let me start off by saying that we're going to be presenting the CQ DX Hall of Fame Awards tonight. The activities and accomplishments that qualify one for membership in this elite group called the CQ DX Hall of Fame involves considerable personal sacrifice and can usually be described by the phrase above and beyond the call of duty. It is not enough to just be a DXpedition team member a number of times. To be in the DX Hall of Fame, you might need to have the foresight to organize the expeditions to the very hard-to-reach entities around the globe, or perhaps work on ways to open amateur radio in the countries where politics exclude it. It is not enough to just accomplish the many awards available, regardless of how difficult. To be in the DX Hall of Fame, you might need to have foresight to create better ways for us to track and accomplish those awards. Bearing all this in mind, tonight we will be inducting two very special DXers into the CQ DX Hall of Fame. Our first inductee, Ned, has dipped his toes in a multitude of DX-related activities, projects over the years. He has been DXpeditioning for over 30 years with a special interest in DXpedition 2-meter EME. His DX-related projects include designing switchable vertical dipole array antennas, SVDAs, for DXpeditions, as well as a dual-band disc cone antenna designed for the Northern California DX Foundation Beacon Network. He has been instrumental in the development of the Foxhound FT8 protocol, working directly with Joe Taylor K1JT. He has also been a design leader in developing remote radios. He has served numerous leadership positions over the years. He is a past and present vice director of the Southwest Division of the ARRL. He has also served on the DX Advisory Committee as well. Nominated by the Central Arizona DX Association, let me introduce to you our first 2020 pandemic inductee into the CQ DX Hall of Fame, Ned Stearns, Alpha
Yay.
Alpha 7 Alpha.
And for those of you who don't know, this was a surprise to Ned. I just got him here under false pretenses, so sorry to surprise you like that, Ned. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Bob. Thanks to CQ Magazine. It's a tremendous honor. I look at the list of other inductees, and I see them all as my friends. I've known them all over the years, and they've brought such joy to me and such great leadership to this part of amateur radio. So I'm really, really happy to get this award today.
And you'll be getting one of these, right? It won't have this guy's name on it, but they're still at the engraver, right, Bob?
Yeah, it'll show up in your mailbox. We'll even arrange to have somebody with Central Arizona present it to you again.
Okay, great. That's great.
Congratulations, Ned, and thanks for being a good sport and coming on.
Okay.
We
Thanks
appreciate
a lot,
it. And I will have you on another time where we will actually profile you as a DXpeditioner, Ned. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Plenty of time for that.
So thank you. Appreciate you joining us tonight. And congratulations once again. We're very well deserved. And
Thank you, Val.
good job. So next we're going to bring up our next a recipient. While we do that, Bob, while Victor's bringing him up, why don't you kind of tell us how you go about getting somebody inducted into the DX Hall of Fame?
It's a pretty simple process. The nominations open up in early part of the year. I don't know the exact time. It's usually January or February. And you just send it to CQ Magazine, to their main email address. You can look it up on their website. Any club, any individual can nominate anybody that they think deserves to be inducted into the DX Hall of Fame. And you present a profile, an overall description of who this individual is and what he's done. And then the award committee at CQ reviews all of the applications. I don't remember exactly how many were submitted this year, but it was around a dozen, which is about
that's
normal.
like January to March or something in the window?
Yeah, I think the deadline is March 1st, so
Okay.
you don't want to go past that.
Okay.
And we always present it at the DX dinner at Dayton every year. So not this year.
Let's bring our next recipient in, Antonio Gonzalez, all the way from Spain, Echo Alpha 5 Romeo, Mexico. And thank you for setting the alarm, because I know it's the middle of the night there, Antonio. And he's another very avid DXpeditioner, and he's very well deserved for this. So, Bob, I will let you take it away.
Okay. Hello, and Tony. Our second inductee has been a very active DXpedition leader and participant over the past 20 years, as well as a devoted humanitarian. He has worked closely with various governments to open doors to amateur radio, especially in Rwanda and South Sudan. In 2008, he worked tirelessly along with DL8 Yankee Alpha to convince the government in Rwanda to allow their amateur radio activation after a civil war banned amateur radio for 10 years previously. Their perseverance has resulted in the government allowing amateur radio to this day. In South Sudan, Tony was the co-organizer of the first amateur radio activity from the new country as Sugar Tango Zero Radio. It took several meetings with the country's PTT officials in order to develop ongoing amateur radio there. In 2015, he was awarded the ARRL International Humanitarian Award for his selfless volunteer work in South America, where as an NGO volunteer, he installed a large emergency radio network in the middle of the Bolivian Amazon rainforest. This involved 10 trips from 2007 through 2019. Nominated by the Intrepid DX Group, let me introduce to you our second 2020 pandemic inductee into the CQ DX Hall of Fame, Tony Gonzalez, Echo Alpha 5 Radio Mike.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you very much to the CQ Magazine Award. It's really, I'm a little bit nervous, and it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. And for me, it's a big honor to have this award. It's like a milestone in my life. And right now, the first person who came to my mind is my Mr. Friend K3 Lima Papa, David Cullingham. And I want to thank him and to other people who helped me to be here tonight. November 6, Papa Sierra Echo, Italy November 3, Zulu November Radio, Echo Alpha 7 Alpha Japan Radio, Echo Alpha 2 Radio Yankee. Those people from DX, from Tipadithi DX gang, who helped me to be here. For sure, this kind of thing is impossible to do alone.
Thank you, Antonio. And we couldn't surprise Antonio, so he knew, but we were able to surprise Ned. But congratulations, well deserved, and you're in with a select, wonderful group of people. Thanks, Bob, for announcing that tonight too.
I'll be in touch with you, Tony.
Oh, we still have Ned.
And the plaque will be shipped over to you.
Congratulations to Eta Bob.
Congratulations. Good job. Good
Thank
job,
you, guys. And hopefully next year you get to see it all live at Dayton. But this was the best, next best thing we could do was to announce it live on the show. So appreciate you guys going out there and risking your lives and being away from your family to bring us the ones we need, the new ones. So congratulations and thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good job, guys.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to talk about a couple of contests we've got going on here. First off is Worldwide Sideband Activity Contest. Now, this one is put on by a bunch of youths, and this happens every single Monday night, 8 p.m. Central, or 0100 UTC, and it's only 1 hour long, every Monday night for 1 hour. And it's pretty cool because youths are worth like 10 points. Youth YLs are worth 15. YLs are worth 5. OMs are worth 1. I actually got on this last Monday night and worked 100 contacts in 1 hour. It was pretty nice to have a nice pile up, but then again, I was worth 5 points. But also, if you go to their website, which was wwsac.com, you're going to notice if you want to get on and you want to use your N1MM, this is another one of those user-defined contests. But if you go onto their website, right here is a video on how to install and set up a user-defined contest with N1MM. So it makes it really easy. And then once you have it set up once, it's in your drop-down box. You know, so once you get into, once you do that, you get into N1MM and you look in your new file for a new contest, and then you'll see it in the drop-down box. So that's pretty cool. A couple of weeks ago, we had the Long Island CW Club. I think it was Bob and Gordo interviewed them for the club spotlight. And they do the CW practice. They have 31 Zoom sessions every week. And it's pretty relaxed. If you're a member of the club, you can come and go in any of those Zoom classes that fits your schedule. So just go to longislandcwclub.org. But what's cool about this is, close that up. They're starting a all YL CW class. So if you're a while out there, want to learn CW, but maybe feel intimidated going into one of them, open to everyone classes, and you just want to be in a while, or you just want to have a night of wine and CW, learn CW, you'll be among friends and fellow YLs, and they're starting this Saturday. So if you want more information, I don't have it in here. Shoot. Let me pull up her email. Actually, just if you go and join the club, it's $30. You will get an email, and you'll be receive information from the person who greets you when you sign up for the club. They'll send you a welcome email, and then you'll also get an email from the girls organizing this all YL CW class. Now, even if you can't sign up, and by this Saturday, the first class is, you can make up for that missed class this Saturday anytime during the week. Like I said, they have 31 classes, beginning, advanced, and intermediate. I mean, just pick a class and get in there and and they really focus on getting you on the air right away. So I'm actually going to be in this Saturday's one. I need to sign up for it yet, but I'm going to be in there with all the other YLs. So hopefully you'll be able to come and join us. So that's all I've got for this week. A lot of cool stuff. That was pretty cool to announce that live. And so I'm going to head it over now to Don, who's going to talk to you about with Amateur Radio Newsline.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2220, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. In North Carolina, a group of radio operators has formed to enjoy the twin interests of radio and astronomy.
You might say that the destiny of this new amateur radio club was in the stars because, well, that's why it was formed in the first place. It's called Astronomy Meets Amateur Radio, and it's the outgrowth of a recent Zoom meeting by members of the Raleigh Astronomy Club in North Carolina. 4 of those attending were amateur radio operators, and according to Mark Gibson in 4MQU, a new universe was born, one that combines amateur radio and amateur astronomy. Mark expects the group to combine star watching parties at night with radio operations. Mark says the Facebook group has been growing since it was created a couple of weeks ago, and the members have also created a group on groups.io. As he notes on the group's homepage, quote, "A large field is the perfect place to set up a radio, and it's also a perfect place to set up a telescope," end quote. There is a place to register for the group on their website. You can find a link to the group's homepage in the printed version of this script on Amateur Radio Newsline website at arnewsline.org. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jack Parker, W8ISH.
The COVID-19 pandemic has led to yet another cancellation of a big event, this one for the younger generation of radio enthusiasts. The 10th running of the Youngsters on the Air Summer Camp, which was to be hosted by the Croatian Amateur Radio Association between the 8th and 15th of August, has been called off for this year. The camp is to be rescheduled for 2021 when it will be hosted by the Croatian amateurs. Meanwhile, SOS Radio Week continues through the end of May, coinciding with the Royal National Lifeboat Institute's May Day fundraising event in the UK. Be listening for special event operators, most of whom will be working from home. Call signs include GB2LBC, GB0SOS, and MX0SKR. For more details, visit sosradioweek.org.uk. Get ready for a special contest among YLs, one being done for a very special reason.
YLs around the world are gearing up for a special contest this month that is also a memorial to a friend. The Day of the YLs contest will be held on the 24th and 25th of May in memory of Karine Dubois, F5ISY, who created the contest but who died last November before her dream could come to fruition. The contest permits operation on SSB, CW and RTTY. According to Jenny Jones, M0HZT, one of the organisers, awards will be issued to all participants, including shortwave listeners, whose contacts have earned them 33 points or more. Details about the scoring and the frequencies can be found on the group's Facebook page. All logs must be submitted no later than the 30th of June. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Boot, G4NJH.
And a reminder that the nominating period for the 2020 Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Newsline Young Ham of the Year Award is now open. You'll find the form on our website, arnewsline.org, under the Awards tab. The award will be presented Saturday, August 22nd at the Huntsville Hamfest in Alabama. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Jack Parker, W8ISH, Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW 73. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now here's the solar update from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
We have 2 new cycle sunspots that are giving us a show, and a solar storm was launched, but it looks like it's going to go west of Earth. Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWEN. Space weather this week is showing signs of life. As we switch to our Earth-facing sun, you can see a lot of prominence action on the east limb. You can see tornadoes in the north and fire plumes in the south, and we haven't seen activity like this in quite some time, which means our sun is definitely beginning to wake up. Now, we've also had some prominence activity on the west limb as well. As a matter of fact, we even had a solar storm launch, but it looks like it's going a little bit west of Earth, so no chance for aurora there. However, we do have a small coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here over the next couple days, and that could give us a burst of fast solar wind, which could bring aurora down to probably high latitudes over the next couple days or so. So there's a little bit of chance for your aurora photographers. Now, on top of that, we have even a bigger story. We have some bright regions that are rotating into Earth view. You can see, but they're both solar cycle 25 bright regions. And as you look at the close-up view, especially the one in the north, look at all that activity. We can even see some coronal rain, which is stuff we haven't seen in quite some time. So it's a beautiful fireworks show. And even in the south, we're seeing those gorgeous fire plumes from these regions. Now, as they continue rotating into Earth view, we can tell that they're not going to be designated sunspots. They are only plage regions. So that means they are beginning to die out just a little bit. However, they are boosting the solar flux back into the marginal range for radio propagation. And this is good news for amateur radio operators and emergency responders. Switching to your M-flare threat meter, you can see the X-ray flux continues to be extremely low, and therefore by proxy the solar flux continues to be low. As a matter of fact, right around the 11th and in through the next couple days, we were sitting at poor radio propagation on Earth's day side. But if you take a look closely, you can start seeing that solar flux rise right about the 15th, and that was due to the new bright regions rotating into Earth view. Oh, I wish they had been sunspots, but they're not, which means they're probably going to continue to die off a little bit, but at least they've boosted the solar flux just a little bit, so we're back into the marginal range for radio propagation on Earth's day side. And even though you're seeing them kind of flatline and kind of top off, and maybe even the flux beginning to go back down a little bit, I am hoping it's going to hang on easily through the next week so you guys can enjoy a little bit better propagation. Switching to our solar storm conditions, you can see we've been pretty much stumbling and bumbling along anywhere between quiet conditions to unsettled conditions. We got a little bit of a bump up around the 11th and again around the 13th. These are from small pockets of fast solar wind, but they're really not that big and they're not really doing all that much. So it's giving a small boost of aurora at high latitudes, but nothing at mid latitudes. And I hate to say it, but this is most likely going to continue. We might have a slightly bigger chance with this new coronal hole that's rotating into the Earth strike zone over the next couple days, but there's a very good chance that the KP is still going to look exactly the way it looks now, just kind of sitting at unsettled conditions with aurora views only at high latitudes. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the fast solar wind from that coronal hole that's rotating in through the Earth strike zone. Plus, we've got a little bit of a chance from an enhancement from that solar storm that's going to go west of Earth. So NOAA at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions with up to about a 25% chance of a minor storm. And this should last over the next few days, possibly in close to the weekend before things taper off. Now, at mid latitudes, we're not nearly expecting quite so much, but we do expect unsettled conditions with up to about a 15% chance of active conditions, especially on the 19th and the 20th, and then things should begin to settle down after that. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, as much as I had hoped that these new cycle active regions were going to be sunspots, as they rotated into Earth view, it was clear they are not going to be. So once again, we remain at a spotless sun and everything is in the green when it comes to big solar flares. We have no risk for radio blackouts or anything like that. So you GPS users on Earth's day side, you should be very happy. There's no problem with GPS reception. At least these bright regions, though, are boosting the solar flux. We are back up into the low 70s, which means marginal radio propagation on Earth's day side. However, as we move to the end of the week, we might start seeing a dip in that solar flux again as these regions continue to decay. So therefore, we could dip back into the poor range. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, enjoy the boost in propagation while you can get it. Now, also because we are at solar minimum, the cosmic ray flux is a bit higher than it normally would be, so you frequent flyers, and this does include air crew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high latitudes and high altitudes, you are in the moderate range for radiation dose, and this does include prenatal passengers, so please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So space weather this week is definitely showing signs of life. We have a lot of prominence activity on the east limb of the sun, and it's stuff that we haven't seen in quite some time. So amateur astronomers, make sure you take a look with your telescopes. You could probably get some amazing views and amazing shots over the next few days. Now, aurora photographers, you also have a chance for some really good shots because we have a coronal hole that's rotating into the Earth strike zone, and it's sending us some fast solar wind. And along with a solar storm that's going west of Earth, it could bring us some gorgeous aurora views down to mid or high latitudes and possibly even down to mid latitudes for a short while. But if you're a mid latitude aurora photographer, make sure you take long exposures because the aurora could be probably pretty dim. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, we've got those two new bright regions that are rotating into Earth view, and although they're not sunspots, they're still boosting that solar flux up into the marginal range, and it could stay like that easily over the next few days before things begin to dip, so make sure you take advantage of that. And then also, you GPS users, well, we're not expecting any strong solar storms, and we're not expecting any big flares from these new bright regions, so GPS reception pretty much all over the globe should be top-notch. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
Get out and be active with ICOM's new IC705 and its optional multifunction backpack. The IC705 is your perfect QRP companion as you have base station features and functionality at the tips of your fingers and a portable package covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at 1 kilo or just over 2 pounds. With RF direct sampling for most of the HF band and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz. 5-watt battery operation with BP272 or 10 watts with a 13.8 volt DC supply. Modes include single sideband, CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions. A large 4.3-inch color touchscreen and live band scope with waterfall. Integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, micro SD card for data storage. It comes standard with the HM243 speaker microphone, and it supports QRP and QRP-P operations. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the LC192 optional backpack with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for SOTA activations or just a day in the park. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information about this and all the great ICOM radios.
And ICOM invites you to enter the weekly drawing for some great swag prizes like T-shirts and hats, and also learn more about the grand prize drawing at ICOMAmerica.com/HamNation. For May, we've got a great radio here. It's the ICOM ID5100A VHF UHF dual band D-Star transceiver. It's an innovative 2 meter 70 centimeter mobile with touchscreen, built-in GPS, DV-DV dual watch, DV-FM repeater list function, DV fast data mode, SD card slot for voice and data storage, and there's an optional Bluetooth port available, as well as downloadable Android app. So go to ICOMAmerica.com/HamNation after this and each episode and register to win. Sign up, good luck, and don't forget to follow ICOM America Inc. on Facebook and Twitter. This week for Smoke and Solder, occasionally I like to show you some new books and possibly some things you'd be interested in. I've got a good one this time around. It is HF Dipole Antennas for Amateur Radio. And no, it's not, it's yellow here. It's not really green, but my camera thinks it is. So anyway, this is some great antenna projects in here, about 20 innovative antenna projects actually, not products. These are things you build. And it's printed on nice, slick, glossy paper here. So this is not like a lot of books that you get that are printed on, just a grade above newspaper stock. This is high-quality printing here. You're really going to like this book. Let's take a look at what's inside of it. There's, here's the contents right here. It starts out an easy-to-make 3-band dipole for ARRL field day, or, really for anything. A portable multi-band rotatable dipole, a small portable dipole for field use, a portable twin-lead 20-meter dipole, the NJ-QRP Squirt, the Arkansas Catfish Dipole, a shortened 60-meter dipole that also covers 15 meters, a compact multiband dipole, a folded skeleton sleeve dipole for 40 and 20 meters, a fan dipole for 80 through 6 meters, a no-compromise off-center fed dipole for 4 bands, a 6-band loaded dipole antenna, the classic multiband dipole, a dipole curtain for 15 and 10 meters, K8 SYL's 75 and 10 meter dipole, the N4GG array, the care and feeding of condo antenna farm, taming the trap dipole. Fan dipole is a wideband multiband antenna element, lightweight rotary dipole for 40 meters, the W0IH tunable 80-meter dipole, a coaxial vertical dipole antenna, a wideband dipole for 75 and 80 meters, designing a shortened antenna and a simple broadband 80-meter dipole, plus a section on current and choke balance, and off-center fed dipole theory and practice, which was a pretty thorough explanation into how off-center fed dipoles work. We're going to take a look at this project on the right here. It's an easy-to-make 3-band dipole for ARRL Field Day. It's from Joel Hallis, W1ZR, and it's actually, you know, that might look like at first glance there, you might think that, and there it is right there on the cover of the magazine or the book, you might think, well, that's just a fan dipole, but no, this is a coupled resonator antenna, a little bit different design. So let's just hit a couple of the highlights here on it. There's a close-up of it. It's a 3-band coupled resonator dipole. He modeled it with EasyNet modeling software for the SWR, and he did the model at a height of 30 feet above ground. And he said that the tuning doesn't really change that much if you go 10 feet either way of that. He designed it for the lowest frequency half wave. That's where you start out. Because if you'll notice a little bit closer right there, let's see if we can zoom in on that. Here's how it's built. There's a common mode choke right there that feeds the antenna. That's to keep re-radiation off your feed line. But look, there's only one element there that's connected to it. The other two are just sitting out there in space. Those are resonators. They're not driven electrically by the coax or the feed point there, but they do resonate as they get energy from that driven element there. It may sound like magic, but it actually works out pretty good. His modeling showed that he got the same pattern and gain as he would from 3 separate half-wave dipoles, each having its own space. So yeah, the resonators really do work. Here's a little look at, the parts needed for it. He used mostly stuff he got from Wireman, but you can get a lot of this stuff, or most of it, practically anywhere. Use whatever you like. On the charts there, he shows a plot for 20 meters, and you can see that thing is very flat all the way from 14 megahertz up to 14.35. I mean, at the highest point, it was only a 1.5 to 1 DSWR. In the center there, he shows a 15-meter plot. You can see that was relatively flat, too, although it does slope up, almost to a 2 to 1 there on the upper end. And in figure 4 there, he shows the plot for the CW and sideband portion of 10 meters. And you can see on the lower end, it is up to about 2 to 1. On the high end, it goes on more like maybe close to 2.3 or 2.4 to 1. But most of that section is right around, 1.5 all the way down to 1 to 1 in the center there. But all of that is usable. You know, you don't have to have a perfect VSWR to use an antenna. And if you're going to use a tuner on it, well, of course, you can match that to your radio perfectly. Now, here's what the pattern looks like here. This is for 15 meters. He shows the peak elevation response for a typical dipole azimuth pattern. And he did this calculating in the loss for 75 feet of RG8X line that he was going to use. And here's a little closer details of it. On the left-hand side is the construction details of how he mounted everything at the feed point. And you can see the ferrite toroid common mode choke there. And he used a mix 43 toroid. It's just 10 turns of RG58 coax there for that. And you can see in the center there, he's got an insulator, and he hangs it from that, so he doesn't really put the weight so much on the antenna. The feed point and the coax and all is all suspended from that insulator. And then you can see the PVC insulators where he started those. On the right-hand side, he's just showing that he simply used some PVC pipe, just cut out sections of it there, drilled holes at the right distances. Roughly, well, he used 16 spacers for the inner spacers, and he's got these things, the holes about 1.2 inches apart, and that will affect how well the resonator works. You want to get that part right. He tested this on, well, he didn't use it on field day because field day has not come yet, but he tried it at home. He tried Europe on 15 and 20 meters, and he compared it with a 3-element tri-band Yagi antenna. And the Yagi was about, say 10 feet higher than this antenna was. And he found that the Yagi gave him about 2 to 3 S units higher. And you think about it, you know, that's a Yagi's a directional antenna with some real gain to it. This thing was only 2 to 3 S units down from that. And he said, and that was for Europe. And if you were using it, say, for field day here, you know, around North America, the difference would probably be closer to a single S unit. So there you go, a very interesting antenna project from the HF Dipole Antennas for Amateur Radio book. There were a number of other good antennas in here that I'm going to be looking at in the future. I'm going to build something. These inspired some ideas here, and you can learn a lot. Really good book. I suggest you check it out. HF Dipoles for Amateur Radio from ARRL. And now let's turn to Amanda. I think you've got a special topic for us here tonight, don't you?
Every time I'm on, I have a special topic. No, let me lower this just a hair. Hi, everyone. No, I don't have any special topics, but I did want to address some of the great guests we've had on tonight. But the first thing I wanted to go over was, hi, Valerie. Thank you so much for your award presentation tonight. That was awesome. And Bob, I'm going to get to you here in a second. I just wanted to go back to the Long Island CW Club and talk about that. Val, did you have to be a member to be able to join these Zoom meetings, or? You do. You do have to join. Okay. It's only $30, I think it was. I paid for gladly. That's so cheap, especially since they have so many classes, 31 classes. And for the YL only group, if you want to be in that group, that starts this Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you're interested in learning more about it, if you on the fence about joining, you can email Jennifer Moore, and that's Kilo Fox 4 Italy November Alpha. Her email is good on QRZ. I hate to give emails out over TV because I don't want her to get spammed. And then our teacher, even this Saturday, I'm doing this. Hopefully you are too, Amanda. I don't know. Is even our instructor is a YL, and that's Leanne Bulger. Hopefully I said that right. Kilo Oscar 4 Bravo Echo Quebec. So it'll be a YL Wine and CW party this Saturday. I think this is fantastic. Now, unfortunately, Jeff and I are planning on going camping this weekend because camping just opened up in Colorado, so I'm not going to have a chance to do it this weekend. But I do look forward to this, and I would really like a relaxed session where, You don't feel the pressure of somebody that's been doing this for years, except for minus the instructor, obviously. So I think it's a great time and this really great introduction to this.
They have classes just for youths as well, for kids. They have classes just for kids as well. And then they just have the regular general population classes. So you just pick and choose what fits around your schedule or what you're interested in. So
that's amazing. And all this stay-at-home stuff, you have no excuses now. Now, speaking of YL things only, and this isn't just for YLs, but Nisi was nice enough to share with us, and that her call is KA1ULN, that May 24th and 25th is Day of YL contest. Now, Val, are you familiar with this?
I am. It's normally date and weekend, so I've never been able to participate. But this year, I can. Although I think... Yeah, I don't know if I have to fight to get in the chair because WPXCW is coming up, and I know Jerry's real hot and heavy for that one. So we may be doing a little, to see who can get chair time.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's rough. Or share the bands. You're on 20 and he can be on 40 or something, or 15 if it's open, huh? Well, it's and this year I just want to mention, I think she was very adamant about this, that it was in memory of Fox 5 India Sierra Yankee, very artistic ham, and created the certificate, I believe. So thanks, Nisi, for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. Everyone get on the air for that. And Val, speaking of Jerry, he's usually around. Is he around tonight? No? Okay.
Why, did you have a question for Jerry?
No. Well, I just thought he might want to jump in as a also honor roll person that he might want to jump in and say congrats.
Well, there is another honor roll DX Hall of Fame member in our little foursome here, and that would be N200. Bob is inducted into the DX Hall of Fame.
Well, Bob, it's great that you joined us tonight, and this was awesome of you and Val to put this all together. And I know we've been talking a lot of DX stuff, but Val had mentioned all of your QSL management. How many ARSs do you actually manage? I mean, it looked like there was a ton on that page.
I haven't counted them in a long time. A lot of them are older operations. We did just recently pick up all of the Lloyd and Iris YASME calls. There were a large amount of them, but they were all pretty old. I believe in not losing the older logs because they're part of our DX history. So I manage and preserve all those logs, and I answer cards as far back as 50 years if someone wants one.
That's amazing. Now tell us how your system works. I know it's probably kind of a secret system because you do so many of them, but tell us, I mean, what you got a PO box for this? How do you do all of this?
Yeah, the standard QSL manager system, which is send me a self-addressed stamped envelope or a couple of dollars for the DX guys, and I'll send you a card back direct. I also have an online QSL request system, two of them actually. One is on Club Log for most of the calls that I have actually got the log on Club Log. And then I have another one that's hosted by Delta Fox 3 Charlie Bravo, and that's for all of the other logs that I have that are paper logs that are not online. So that's a manual system.
So you have to go through all the sheets and look through them manually on all those old DXpeditions?
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, what we did with the YASME logs, and this has worked so well that I'm going to probably transition it to some of the other ones, and that is YASME gave us a grant to be able to use some funds to scan all of the Lloyd and Iris logs on a scanner and do images. So I have them all backed up on, almost all, I've got a few more to do. They're backed up on an image scan, all PDFs, all backed up, triple backed up, and I might be doing the same thing with the paper log, the other paper logs that I have. I found that is actually pretty fast for me to research better than some of the paper. Some of the paper logs I have are horrible. I mean, if you can just imagine, you know, the expedition, not the expedition, but the operations back 30, 40 years ago, and handwritten logs on steno pads, and it gets to be a real challenge sometimes to be able to look.
You probably
stuff
get like
up.
sea spray and all kind coffee stains, and
A lot of the Lloyd and Iris logs were, you know, what do they call it? NCR paper, where it's like a yellow sheet on the back.
Oh, carbonless forms. Yeah.
It's carbonless, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we got all the carbonless copies. Now, some of them are 40 years old, and if you have to be a sleuth to just see some of the writing on there. It's all really faded. But fortunately, believe it or not, once we fed it through the scanner, some of that came up enough to be able to read it better than with the naked eye on a paper, which was kind of amazing. But yeah, it's a challenge sometimes. But
that's really interesting.
And one very famous log we did pick up, we were asked to take over, and that was King Hussein's log, JY1. And I have his original handwritten log from the 70s. And then afterwards, he transitioned to facsimile paper, and they're really pretty rough. The more recent ones, the ones from the 80s and 90s, but they're still readable. They're just loose sheets of paper that one of these days I have to actually sit down and do. But he had 5 logbooks from the 1970s that were all the original handwritten logs by King Hussein, and they're cool. They're just cool to have.
Well, that's very memorable. I mean, that's really interesting. Hopefully, it goes in a museum or something later on. And so, Bob, I had one other question for you. What was your favorite de-expedition? What's your most memorable one?
Oh, wow. You know, it's one thing I've done on de-expedition. The favorite was Amsterdam. Fox Tango 5 Zulu Mike. I did that with Jerry and his gang. And it was my not my first, but the first real mega de-expedition that I was part of that was halfway around the world and to an island on a boat. And I always wanted to go on the Braveheart, which is just the boat that went there. And so hands down, that was the top. But I've been on so many other de-expeditions that have been different types of de-expeditions. That I've made good friends in some parts of the world, and I've gone back there numerous times, like at 9M6. I've been there quite a few times. But there have been one-man, two-man operations, and then these big ones with 14 operators. It's really hard to put my finger on one or the other. Of course, the first one I went on was the Spratly Islands, and we got shot at by Vietnamese on the first attempt. And that was, I guess, it's a testament to my steadfast
tenacity.
Yeah, insanity or something. I that first one got shot at, and I went back on. I don't know how many. I've lost track of how many de-expeditions over the years that I've been on, but I'm not doing them now. If you told me in January that the hottest thing to work on the bands would have been stations with Stay Home in the suffix, I would have called you nuts.
That is pretty unreal. I'm sure you feel the same way, Val, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm newsletter editor for Indexa, which Bob, N2OO here, is president of. And I have some material to use for this newsletter, but come summer and fall, man, I'm going to be scraping, trying to find material to put in that newsletter. It's going to get rough this fall. Hopefully some stuff will activate soon.
Absolutely. You'll be doing a lot of personal profiles in that newsletter, I think.
Yeah. For real
doing
this time.
Historical reviews.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Bring back some 70s de-expeditions or something and have some fun with it.
Yeah, that would be fun. See those pictures, because I pulled one some old ones out there when I was introducing Bob.
That one of me, and I wanted me from 1980. That was 1980. That one of me was.
I actually had to read the credits across to figure out which one was you because I could not tell from the photo.
And not to mention, they always wore the sexy shorts.
You are. you guys, this has been awesome. Oh, I'm sorry. Val, go ahead.
The most fun is just getting to meet people in these other countries and make friends with them. And like I said, I've made some really good friends in 9M6. I go there, they treat me like a rock star. Matter of fact,
one time, CQ bar. That CQ bar I showed.
The CQ bar and grill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, fill us in on, because some of our listeners and viewers are not all generals or extras that work DX. Tell us what country that is.
No, I'm sorry, Sabah. That's East Malaysia on the island of Borneo, and it was an offshoot from the Spratly trip I did in 1979. I went back in 1980 and met these people. His name is Alphonse, 9M6 Mike United. And I got to be very good friends with him. I went back probably 8 or 10 times. I've lost count. And they just treat me like one of the family over there. They're just super, super nice people.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's what's cool.
That is actually really awesome. Val, a real quick question. Has Jerry gone back to any countries that he did a de-expedition or the islands because he fell in love with it?
No, he's he not yet. There's a couple he'd like to go back if they ever do, because like Bob, he really liked Amsterdam. That was a really nice one for him. He also liked Palmyra. That was really nice for him too. So, but hopefully he'll drag me along on the next one. But
yeah, definitely. Now Palmyra is one of those. I think it's like a wildlife refuge, so you have to have like special permission to go there, right?
Yeah, and they all have little private cabins. They all had their own cabins. There was a shower house. They operated in an air-conditioned room. I mean, it was like a deluxe de-expedition.
Is it really even a de-expedition? Except for I heard they had spiders like this big.
Yeah, well, Swain's was really bad. Were you on Swain's, Bob?
No, I did. Okay. My real rough ones were Navassa and Desiceo back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know in Swain's everybody came back with pus oozing out of somewhere, and a lot of them went right to the emergency rooms. It was not a good de-expedition.
George, you've been quiet, buddy. You have any 2 cents here?
You know, I can't really add a lot because I'm not a big contester. And although I like to work DX, I really I haven't been real active on it lately. I've just had so many things going on. But I did have one question for Val, and this just occurred to me almost immediately when you started talking about the CW classes. Do YLs lose the usual QSO multiplier if they're operating on CW?
Oh, yeah. We lose our 2 dB gain right there. I'm just another schmuck in the pile up when I'm trying to work DX on CW. Yep. I think my dog's got to go out. He's circling the door.
Okay, that means we got to wrap it up here. I've had those problems with my dogs in the past. Okay, let me go over the nets real quick. We don't have any HF nets tonight. One had technical difficulties. The other one, bless his heart, W7UDI, is out on a wildfire. So, Steve, thank you for all of your hard work out there in Washington, and stay safe, my friend. So join us on 14 Charlie or DMR on 31012. That's all I have. I don't know who's wrapping it up. I'll just do a quick round the horn, and then I'll pass it over to George because he's been so quiet tonight. So, Bob, do you have anything else for the show tonight?
No, you guys did a really nice thing for us tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'll come back sometime if Val wants me.
Absolutely. You're invited anytime. Val, what about you?
Yeah, and I'm so honored you guys decided to announce on Ham Nation. Thank you so much for letting us do that. It was a very cool thing to do, and I'm glad we got to surprise Ned and bring in some actual true DX from Spain. So that was cool. So hopefully we'll get you on again and talk about some of your adventures, because you have lived a good de-expedition life.
Agreed. And thank you, Antonio, for joining us all the way half across the world. And I just wanted to say, I think I really honestly saw the shock in Ned's eyes. Like his face just went blank. I think you can all agree with me. He was like, what is going on? Okay, George, over to you.
Well, that was very interesting tonight. I was not expecting that. I didn't know that they were going to do the presentations right here. And that was really cool. And yeah, like Val said there, some bona fide DX right here on the show. So that's always a lot of fun, and a great segment earlier that Bob had on the ventilators. That's some tough stuff to pull off, and it looks like they did it and didn't spend a whole lot of money doing it either. So good stuff, and of course Gordo and Winlink there. That's really come a long ways in the last few years. So I have not done it yet. I need to get in there and check it out. But yeah, fun stuff tonight, and I think you should join us right back here next Wednesday night, because we've got another good show coming up with Bob, Gordo, Don, everybody else. It's always a lot of fun on Wednesday nights, and we appreciate you watching. And now here's Amanda to wrap it up.
All right, that looks like it's it, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again next week.
Hi, I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android, where each week I'm joined by Ron Richards, Florence Ion, and a rotating crew of Android journalists, developers, and enthusiasts, where we talk about the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/AAA or find the show in your podcatcher of choice. That's All About Android.